Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is a new month, or it will be tomorrow when I post this out. I hope you've all had a wonderful April. It's lovely to connect back with you today. So yeah, I'm just coming in to do an update of what I've been seeing over the past month, the progressions of that, and kind of how it's all kind of coming together. But first, I've had a wonderful email from a guy called Andy who uh, he's an artist, and when I went to the Vatican with Indigo Angel, he recently sent me out this lovely piece of artwork, which I'm going to share with you all now. I've linked his Instagram just at the top of the page there, so it's at for NDY444 for his Instagram page, and I just absolutely love this. I thought it was wonderful because we specifically went to the Vatican to do a big grid mission, and Medusa's head came up within that. So yeah, he created this wonderful piece of art. So I just want to thank you so much. And if you do want to check him out, you can find his Instagram page at for NDY444. So yeah, thanks so much, Andy. And if you do, anybody else wants to kind of share their art with me, I'd love to share it on here. So more of you can see the wonderful creations that you've all put together and do. So yeah, thank you so much for that, Andy. That's really amazing. Okay, so just going into May, I'm going to be doing a self-care Monday on the 5-5 Gateway. So on the 5th of May at 6 p.m. And then I've got the Aurora host dates for May. So if anybody wants to come on and join the Aurora host, this is basically a 4 sessions a month where we kind of just go in. Sometimes it'll be a talk, sometimes it'll be a meditation, sometimes it will be a healing circle or a grid work circle or whatever that is. You can find the way to connect on that on my website. Just look for the Aurora host page, and then you can sign up on there. And then I'll send you a password to get onto the actual page. So yeah, so they are on the 9th, the 12th, the 23rd, and the 26th. And then I'm considering doing another Pay As You Feel day because the last one was fantastic. That will be on the 17th. And again, I'll be able to take about 11, 10 or 11 clients. I did 11 on the Saturday just gone. But I was also exhausted by the end of it. So maybe I'll do maybe 10 this time because I want to be able to give the best that I can. So yeah, it will be a pay as you feel day if it goes ahead. So just look out for that. I will send out an email. So if you do want to receive those emails, also go on my website and just subscribe to my website, which is www.felixhyde.com. Okay, thank you for listening to that. And let's get into the energy report. Yeah, also the surgery that I had at the start of April as well went really well. It gave me a lot of time to kind of think whilst I was off and just start to kind of put a lot into my book as well, which was really great. So I actually had a lot more time to dive into the structures of healing and how it all kind of works and how it all kind of comes together. So yeah, okay. Right. So the information that I've been kind of picking up this month, at the end of March, I think it was about the 29th of March, um, a solar dragon called Zarathustra came into my attention. And Zarathustra is one, I believe, was the prophet of Zoroastrianism, um, connected to Ahura. And the solar dragon effectively kind of drew to my attention the Holy Father's emergence into the consciousness grids and also into the artificial consciousness grids. or the artificial grids. Now, this is kind of significant because this progressed into the dismantling of the artificial timelines, which has been a kind of reoccurring theme this year already and last year. So it kind of, for me, it kind of amplified last year, or started out to amplify last year, but then progressed into by the end of last year, everything had really opened up, and then it went into a whole another level of that this year. So the artificial timelines, right? This is kind of significant to understand. So when we go through a rupture, or we go through a kind of unjustified emotional reaction that causes harm or damage to those around us and to ourselves, that reaction effectively splits the consciousness from your organic system, from not, it is still organic, but it splits your consciousness apart and then kind of separates it out, and maybe holds it in a position of time where it's shut down its awareness, but it still relays to you the emotional transits that come from that original trigger point. Now, when the consciousness splits and it separates from your awareness, and then it shuts down in like a kind of amnesiac state, the attachment of negative energy that's generated, or the negative energy that's generated from you, manifests from the negative system and latches into your fractal that sits within this timeline. Now, through this splitting, of the consciousness, this manifests a state of emotion that carries a frequency that also draws in entities and kind of distorted, just I suppose it would be kind of like distorted channels that kind of intersect with your own organic channels. That, number one, they lodge states of emotion through those channels, or states of emotions lodge within the channels, and then backlog as frequency within that space. Now, this can be then refed through and expanded out, and then kind of repeat the whole cycle of going through the same trigger trauma again. But that initial vibrational attachment and the splitting of the consciousness basically detaches your consciousness from your presence, and it sits within a kind of time vector that generates trauma. Now, with many of these splits, this builds up an artificial timeline. This builds up a trauma-based timeline that basically kind of perpetuates over time. Now, obviously, with what we've gone through as a collective, as humanity, and then on a personal level, we've gone through all of our kind of amounts of traumas which are manifested as an experience of like the kind of the greater collective. Now, that greater collective, you're playing out your role to heal that part of it. And when we've got consciousness that has split off, it sits in a negative timeline, which holds a pain body, it holds a kind of a trauma body that contains all of this information. Now, in order to kind of pull that back, we have to kind of do the healing work. Now, what this timeline does per se is it acts as a kind of feeding station. Now, this trauma timeline acts as a feeding station which generates into a kind of polarity field, or a traumatized polarity spectrum that is fragmented and it weaves in and out of your organic timeline. Now, if you imagine we've got everybody on the planet also experiencing that same thing, this is generating an overlay to the organic timeline. Now, that is used with the media to perpetuate or kind of like triggering warring consciousness and fear that activates that timeline. And as it activates, it then gets funneled back out and fed back through a complex system that's like that would be the artificial tree of life, the base 10 architecture. That is then also siphoned off through another complex set of feeding stations into the black cube system, and then that's funneled out again into another complex set of systems that feeds into artificial machinery. It feeds into the red trident, the cloning machinery, and the artificial, the cloning machinery. It also funnels out into the black hole systems to feed into the Wiesen matrix and their set of negative systems. It's also used to weaponize against humanity as well. So there's multiple reasons why the dark do this. And this is basically to create this closed loop circuit where the information is just recirculating around and around and around and around and around and never kind of breaking free from that pattern, let's say. So because the frequency is so traumatized and so painful, as we try to go into that, it shuts down the awareness and shuts down the ability to kind of communicate or understand or process this. And this is because the level of the emotion is so large that any light presence that kind of goes in without the right tools, without the right, the right protections and the right, I suppose, the right schooling behind it, like the right understanding behind it, it would just kind of flatline the consciousness and it would shut it down. Wouldn't necessarily kind of I don't feel like it could harm you because the way that we review things, the guidance wouldn't allow that to kind of happen. But for time's sake, what we'll just say is as we kind of go in to that field, the emotion becomes so overbearing, it triggers deep exhaustion in the body and lifelessness that the consciousness eventually just sort of like phases out and goes to sleep, and then you return into your body and come back to conscious awareness because the impact of it has been too hard. So that being said, let me just check my notes and see where I'm at. So we're understanding the extension of this bigger system. Now, with the Holy Father coming back in, which has been a progressional movement since, like 2023, December 2023, but then really in December 2024, which then graduated through January to May, that where we're at now. We've had multiple updates that have happened to this with the Holy Father coming in, which has recoded the root sphere and the way we manage our control, not our control, sorry, our safety and our security levels, which as we kind of understand this, we've got the Holy Father, the organic Holy Father coming back in, which had been cut out, taken off and separated out, which allowed all of this fear to overrun. The Holy Father creates the level of security, it holds the root as a firm foundation for everything else to kind of grow upon and move into expansion, because you've got that unconditional support, you've got that unconditional safety from your divine parent, very much so as your earthbound father, physical, individualized family satellite. Your father should be the one who would teach you that you are safe, that you are secure, which then programs the mind to believe that. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way in this life. And that's because of the trauma-based reality that we are within, and they have their own conditioning, and they've got their ancestors that have their own conditioning that's then funneled down and down and down and reprinted into one's own matrix, one's own awareness, and then worked through in order to override. So as we look back to the Holy Father coming in, this security and safety is triggering the review of fear, which effectively governs how safe you feel in your reality, which also dictates how you are going to act or react. Now, that action or reaction is the choice point that either brings you into a higher timeline when we choose to act rather than react. And we're able to kind of operate from a stable, secure mindset and being able to see what's coming in, not taking offense, etc. And we're all human, so sometimes we're going to take offense. It's just fact of the matter. Now, as that's kind of dialing up into the higher viewpoint of it, we look down into the reaction time. The reaction generates a trauma response, which then attracts the negative frequency that interlocks and interacts with your consciousness, which over time, as it overreacts again and again, it becomes programmed into behave in this certain way, which generates and feeds the artificial timelines, the artificial time matrix, artificial tree of life, and the whole negative system structure. And it also draws upon or it fractures and creates the space for the negative ego to build. Now, that is ultimately what the dark agenda want, is because they want to create the shadow body as their source body, but it needs to have the light within there somewhere to act as the creation of that. So it needs a source to feed upon. If it keeps that source really diminished, that's one way of working with it. And then overlays and overlays and overlays with shadow. So this takes me into the next step of this. So as we're kind of working through the dismantling of the artificial timelines and recoding the root sphere, we're also looking at the hybrid DNA, which pretty much the latter of people carry a hybrid race DNA because we are all here, and having to work through polarity-based consciousness. So when we're looking at it from this perspective, now I'm just getting something coming in, so I just need to take a breath for a moment. What's the guidance here? So, okay, so as we've got the Holy Father kind of coming back in and readdressing this, we're now looking at the hybrid consciousness. That's been a theme of April, been a theme of healing in April, is healing the hybridized consciousness, and how it interacts with the artificial timelines, because the artificial timelines use a so the hybrid DNA, say if you've got one light structure, one light model, one dark model, and fuse them together, put it inside a body, it's got access to two waveforms of consciousness. We've got the light and the dark. Now, the aspect of the race of the dark that you have agreed to hybridize with, that has an Akashic record. It's got a hall of records that are dedicated to the genetic of that family line. So if we're looking at a reptilian family line, we've got the access into that, and we've got the access into the understanding and the programming of that thing. But that being said, they've also got the access to you, because they're the ones that are funneling frequency through that genetic line, and then it gets funneled back in through your central nervous system. And each time the trigger goes off, the more of that energy can kind of move in. So with the Holy Father coming back in, and it's not just with the Holy Father, there's more to it than that. Because if we've got the light side as well playing out there, as a child, we're being taught by our parents right from wrong. We're being taught by our environment right and wrong. And it's down to us to be able to kind of understand it and work it through. Now, the backlog of that as well is you've got your own lessons to learn from, you've got your own growth, you've got your ancestors that are going to have conditioning that's playing out through you as well. So there's so many different factors that are going on as to why a person behaves in one way and not the other way. So as I'm looking at this information about the hybrid genetic, if we've got the extension of a negative hybrid genetic that's also playing out within this, and we go through the triggers in an early age, more of that consciousness is going to be pushed in, because they do not ask for your opinion or ask for your permission to move in, they just do. Whereas if it is a light system and you choose light, of course the light is going to move in, but they don't influence you, they don't push you, because they believe in the free will of humanity. They respect your free will because we are going through so much levels of control. We've had so much of our free will taken away from us. And they also believe that your experience to learn is paramount. It's so important for you to kind of go through your choices, go through your experiences, so you can change your belief systems within those moments and choose to go in a different direction. If it's negative, you choose to go in a positive direction. And hopefully, if it's positive, you choose to stay in a positive direction. So it's all about the learning, it's all about the expansion. Whereas the dark, they have an agenda, and that is to overtake the mind and body of the people of Earth, so they can kind of fulfill their agenda, fulfill their system, and they particularly target various factions of the Christos races, with intention to override it. So that being said, we've got the Holy Father coming back in, which is shifting the narrative from the hybrid races. Now, one key point that I picked up on this month was I actually saw, I was taken onto some kind of ship thing, and I saw all of these different hybrids on the ship. And as I was there, they made a choice that they chose to go through what's called a bioregenesis program. And they chose to connect into the light structure. Now, as I was kind of reviewing this, it kind of felt a little bit like memory. Well, it would have been memory anyway, but it felt like it wasn't just connected to the present, but heavily into the past and also into the future. So we're looking at this in multiple timelines playing out at the same time, with the choice point of them moving back into alignment with source and stepping away from the negative structure, negative agenda. Now, those hybrid genetics, or the hybrids that you've chosen to pair with, some of them will want to go into the bioregenesis program, and usually ones that are working with light beings and light structures, they want to be a part of that. The ones that don't, they've still, the family network has still somewhat got access to it, but they can try and sway and distort the ability to align the negative system into positive. Yeah, they can sway and try and distort the ability to align parts of their race into the positive alignment. And this is where it comes down to reviewing the contracts. And this is what happened within this room on a spaceship with all the other hybrids, is that they chose to dismantle the contracts with their original families and re-sign contracts with, or sign or re-sign contracts with the light to move into the bioregenesis program. And this is because the reason why we go through a kind of hybridization is because a lot of the negatives, they have gone through such battery to their own genetic template that they've digressed and become disformed, and they've become um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not, yeah, I suppose misaligned would be a kind of an accurate term for this, but they've come out of alignment with the life stream and the life source. Um, so their ability to kind of regenerate and sustain and create longevity in their life has kind of uh, collapsed. And effectively, they are now looking and have been looking for a long time for a way to sustain themselves and to feed themselves. So this is why the negatives kind of went along the way of creating a system that could feed their agenda, could feed their energy systems without actually doing the inner work, without actually attempting to realign, because then they'd have to deal with all of the karma, they'd have to deal with all of the damage that has kind of happened with them. Um, and they also don't want to be aligned to source as well. Ultimately, the negatives, they don't want to be aligned to source, so they're going through like the kind of the pathway of separation basically, and this is where they um, degenerate so much and they detach so much, and then they attack and cause so much chaos that they're basically their systems digress, and then eventually become space dust. Um, After the space dust and I believe they then move into a unification with source after that. So it's two very, very different pathways, two completely polar opposite pathways where we've got the light on and the dark on. They're both completely respected by source as an experience of learning, um, to learn complete separation and disconnection from the source body, or to reconnect, to find that reconnection with source. So this is kind of where we're at. So as we're looking at the rehabilitation of the the creating sovereignty and repair from the AI timelines, healing the hybrid race genetic and the contracts behind that to realign all of this kind of hybrid structure back into the light, we've then had huge flows of liquid light plasma coming in. Now, this has been really amazing as we've kind of connected in with the 12th dimensional frequency. So I've had a couple of nights and days actually where I've literally just kind of either drifted off into sleep and then woke up in my dreams and been within a liquid light field and really felt the impact of that, the bliss that comes over the body and then the expansion that comes with it. But what's also kind of come about from that, so the liquid light plasma acts almost like as a kind of a base pre-matter resin, let's say, um, that moves into any layer of crack within the structure and seals the damage and starts to repair regenesis and restore any layer of damage to the system. Now, this goes through every single layer, and this is the completely uncorrupted. This is the part that repairs all of the damage to the genetics. This is the part that it just repairs everything. Basically, it's the very first level of pre-matter manifestation. So the very first stage of manifesting. It comes through. It is like the kind of divine blueprint, the organic divine blueprint that is completely uncorrupted. So if you imagine all of this kind of artificial timeline structure that's been woven through your reality, that we've detached from, we've had the Holy Father come in to change the structure of it, to change the belief systems behind it, then the liquid light coming in. The liquid light is then rehabilitating how you operate. This liquid light is the fountain of youth. It is it's the thing that creates longevity and eternality. And if you remember, I think it was last month, I was speaking about the sextant matrix and the immortal light body. This is what we're working towards. And it's this liquid light plasma that eventually will be the fully active 12-strand DNA template that is eternal. It's only the physical form that is not eternal. But the physical form is changing as well. That will also become eternal as it transforms into a semi-physical and crystal. So semi-physical carbon crystal matter, and for some it will go into a crystal matter, and then eventually it will become just a light body, a kind of like a liquid light body. So this is kind of like where we're going to. So with the liquid light plasma that's coming in, on a personal level, over the past couple of years, I've already been kind of doing this transfiguration movement, which is with the support of the liquid crystal light, which supports bilocational viewing and bilocational activity, which basically puts your consciousness in a light body template where you are conscious and focused, you're conscious and aware of that in your physical form, but you're also aware of it playing out in a different form. And you know what's going on, you're retaining the memories, and that's being fed back to your conscious awareness. Now, the next stage of that, which is what's been happening over the past like month and a half for me, is the translocational phasing, where the body moves to the location, and that it's not like it moves to the location, it's like the location comes to you actually, and then sits within your Merkaba. So the environment around you changes into that other realm, so to speak. And as that's kind of moving around, you're able to interact within these different realms, present, conscious, and focused, being able to see and experience in these other dimensional fields, in these other kind of planes of existence, and whilst you are awake and in your body. So this is some of the magic that's happening at the moment. The next stage of this will be when the consciousness and the body is able to move, change its format and move through the dimensional spectrum and worlds, I suppose, as well, because we've already been opened up to the higher worlds already. So where you're kind of needed, you'll be able to kind of move through, but you don't have the cord that keeps on pulling you back to the earth plane. You're able to go there and stay there. Think of it as like a kind of an interdimensional moving house, moving your interdimensional house and bringing that to you instead, so you can go there, stay there, departicularize and reparticularize in a different format. But that obviously is the type of work that Jesus Christ did when he ascended. So that all kind of came up over the past month. So as we're kind of tapping into all of this reconstruction of the artificial time matrix, that's all deconstructing at the moment. We're then gaining back and claiming back our sovereignty, reclaiming our bodies, reclaiming our universe. And with the knowledge that's coming back and the corrections to the awareness, the understanding and the integration of the gnosis, this is flipping the script of the awareness, which is also having an impact on the planetary field, which is restoring and has restored the planetary axis. So where we've gone from having a kind of poison apple structure, we're now moving back into the golden apple. And this is coming back through multiple phasings of what has been happening last month, with the last month or the month before, with the Hieros Gamos alignments, which have basically unified the polarity spectrums and brought about the knowledge and the wisdom that comes with it, which realigns everything back into a vertical aligned structure, allowing the flow of the source field to come back through you or to move through you, and the awareness, the higher awareness coming back within that. Okay. I do have quite a significant amount of information this month, obviously, because I've had 2 weeks off. So, yeah. So the 2 weeks off, I was able to really kind of get in to these topics. So yeah. So after all of that information kind of came up, that really came to me for about like 2 to 3 weeks. Then more recently is again moving back into the hybridization programs, the healing of hybridized thoughts and consciousness, extreme viewpoints, or polarity viewpoints, and the hybrid consciousness linked into the negative structure. And just to go back into these artificial timelines again, the hybrid consciousness, the negative hybrid consciousness, the negative side of that hybridized program is more susceptible to the trigger points of the negative structure and the AI timeline. So, what we're doing, what we have been looking at and reviewing and healing is a lot of the polarity spectrums that have been playing out that I've linked into the artificial timeline. So, if that's breaking down, it has a cause and effect response on the artificial, the hybrid genetic. Now, all of this is playing out for the kind of current timeline that we're in, and this is well, I've been told it's called a kind of liberation timeline, but as I look at it from different dimensional viewpoints, we've got a kind of tribulation to liberty timeline, tribulation to liberation timeline that's kind of playing out at the moment, depending on which dimension you're viewing from and what perspective you're viewing from. So as we're kind of going through this big deconstruction of the artificial structure, which would exacerbate the tribulation, knowing that we're moving into a liberation and a freedom, peace, and prosperity of the of humanity, really. So this is what is on its way. There's of course going to be some rocks and bumps in the road that pulls us into the fear-based consciousness, or an attempt to pull us into fear-based consciousness, and that is to knock us back or knock us down. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, depending on how you choose to act or react. If you choose to act, like I said earlier, you're going to be coming into a state of peace. Okay, well, this is happening. Is it directly impacting me? How can I manage this situation? What is the guidance within this situation? God, please take over this situation so it aligns to the highest possible outcome for everyone. And then through that intention, that allows source to work through your body to kind of do what is needed to align that timeline. That was a key one that I used when I came out of heavy drug use and getting sober, was the surrendering to God and just allowing God to kind of do what's needed to bring peace to my reality. And that it did, which was fabulous. And I'm very grateful. Okay. So, all of these, the way that we're thinking, the way that we are interacting is going to dictate how we are going to experience the reality, and what do we want to create from that. So every choice point of acting or reacting is going to either generate a higher timeline or it's going to generate a lower timeline. Do you want to be connected into the lower timeline? Do you want to be connected into the higher timeline? So when we're choosing that, in that point, even when we're going through extreme trigger points, if you can just stop and say to yourself, I am claiming back my body, I am expanding my light, you are then going to be counteracting the trigger by choosing your sovereignty, choosing not to react, and becoming peaceful. And eventually, through repetition, it builds the neural pathways, it builds the ability to kind of create cohesive reality structure, and you'll generate enough charge to move yourself out of a victim state, out of a kind of reactive state, and into aligned with a peaceful state. And what comes with that is the understanding and the option to review, okay, is this my reaction? Am I personally being attacked here? Or is this person having a trauma response of their own thing that is then impacting onto me? And I'm then just getting confused by that and then thinking and taking it personally. So, and this is something that I've been like heavily dived into this month. So it's, of course, you kind of go through phasings and pulses where you kind of expand into something, then contract out, expand into something, then contract out away from it, and then move into something else. So you kind of open yourself up to that and then pull yourself away from it to integrate it. And then down the line, you may go into it again to make it bigger and generate more awareness of it. But if you can hone in on that, understand the patterns of it, and understand the mechanics of how you are working within that, you're then able to create sovereignty in a lot and then transition a lot more quickly. And through this process, you are converting your consciousness, you are converting the charge, you're converting the frequency that generates around that kind of reaction or trigger point. Okay, so yeah, that is kind of how we're starting to move into the liberation timelines. It's just a matter of perspective and a matter of how you are choosing to act or react. So as we've kind of been diving in and out of healing of the hybrid races, another part of the kind of hybridization programs historically were to, well, I found there's been a lot of coercion into it, but a claiming of the light genetic has sometimes been forced and been coming from an abuse of power. But the purpose of this was taking big chunks of the genetic and then manipulating with AI. And I'm talking about a very long time ago, interdimensionally as well. The blending of the light genetic and the template that's held within that, blending it with AI and then creating of holograms. This all kind of ties into the healing of the hybrid race scenarios and the hybridization. So sometimes we can get hybridizing of a negative structure that is still kind of holding a spark of God somewhere within there, but predominantly not. They come in and take some of the light race genetic to blend and try and regenicize their race, but without kind of moving into bioregenesis. Let me just take a breath there because I'm starting to feel quite tired. From all the information coming through. So as looking at the extension of the hybrid race genetic, we've got the model that I've already spoken about, which is bringing a digressed format back into alignment with light. Then there's another type of hybrid race genetic, which would be a stealing of the organic light template, splicing it, mapping the genetics within that, and then manipulating the consciousness of it with AI. And that would be used to mimic the light structures and play a role of trickery with the light model. So what we could, as an example here, we can take a Ruby Sun structure or a part of the Ruby Order records, which would be like the Yeshua or the Jesus Christ. Sorry, that is the same thing. The Yeshua or the King Arthur or the Akhenaten template, or even a solar dragon, and distort the template, blend it with AI, and use it as a tool to project a false light um, hologram into your conscious awareness. Now, this would be like an AI projection or a holographic insertion of an artificial kind of light being. And that would then be used as a form of control, believing that one would be um, believing that this structure would be of the light because there is somewhat a level of resonance to light. However, it's also a mangled electrical, artificial, kind of degenerate template that would feed you a scrapance of light, but push you into an area of dark. Now, this system is used to control, along with the Holy Father coming back in, the Red Wave Trident AI cloning station structure of the light, or a creation to clone and harvest energy from the light structure, has also been breaking down as well heavily this month. This is what I've kind of been noticing. And again, this is just an extension of what has been happening since January, since I've been talking about this since January. But the important part of understanding this is this is been breaking down. This has also revealed, along with the hybrid, the races, along with the kind of galactic trafficking networks, this has also revealed a part of the negative structure to me, which was the Eye of Sauron network. The Eye of Sauron network, which I don't have a lot of information on just yet because it's only come about to me over the past couple of days. I've got a feeling I'm going to get a lot more of it over the next month. So I'll probably be able to go much deeper into the Eye of Sauron by then, because at the moment the information is quite tight. So as I'm looking at it, this Eye of Sauron network acts as a kind of a shield to coat and cover the intergalactic trafficking networks, the cloning programs, the hybridization programs. And this is sat as a number one, a cloaking to conceal their behaviors, but number two, it acts as another type of harvesting station that draws the power, draws the information through the Eye of Sauron network and funnels it into like a black magic grid. And then this again gets weaponized against us. So as this has been coming into my awareness, what I've also found is it also syncs up into the parallel time matrix, the parallel universe, which I think I showed an image of a Vecca quadrant, one of our universal quadrant, a few videos ago. Now this is four trees of life that create like a kind of something like that. So we've got four trees of life that kind of interconnect with each other, and the one. So what you can see, that would be our one there. This one over here would be the parallel universe. That's their higher heaven, and this is our higher heaven. So it's those two together and those two together that generate a full Vecca quadrant. Now that quadrant, the parallel universe structure actually is the father matrix. Now the father matrix has been tampered with, and this matrix, we'll call it, it is called the Akusha matrix. So this Akusha matrix has got a different vibrational resonance to R1. It's like a lower vibration, whereas R1 is a higher vibration because it's a mother consciousness. So we've got another counterpart of us that live within that one that we're also having to heal simultaneously here. So the information of that one transfers over to this one. And as the Holy Father is kind of re-immersing itself back in, the negative systems within the Akusha matrix are upfolding and breaking away, which is then highlighting more layers of the Eye of Sauron network. And this Eye of Sauron network, I haven't, like I said, I haven't got my full awareness of it yet. I will be coming back and doing a big old talk on that probably next month when I've gathered enough information. But these Eye of Sauron networks, like I said, they conceal these programs that generate generate hybridization, generate cloning, generate any kind of interdimensional trafficking network, human trafficking network, secret space programs, etc. And drawing its power from the cloned bodies of King Arthur, which is why I mentioned the red trident structure that's being dismantled. So all of this stuff is breaking down, and this is all where we're able to reclaim our records, reclaim our awareness, and kind of draw power back to our system. You know, on that note, I am absolutely exhausted, and I've got 5 clients to do today. So I'm going to love you and leave you all. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful May. Happy Beltane, happy everything. We are doing so well, and I'm so happy for us all. Um, just keep on going. The liberation, we're at the doorstep of the liberation. We've just got to open that door. And it's through these processes of conversion, it's through the processes of raising awareness to the system and really being able to see the inner workings of what's going on within that negative system. Because as soon as you gain awareness, that is then fed back out into the collective field for other people to start tapping into. And as that raises into your awareness, they lose their power, we claim our power, and we take sovereignty within our structure. Yay! So, again, love you all so much. I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous month to come, and I'll look forward to speaking to you at the end of May. I am going to be going away on the 29th of May through halfway through June. So I will do the update before I go. But other than that, love you lots. Bye for now.